I'm Katie Ganshert, and I'm the author of No One Ever Asked. No One Ever Asked is a story about three families navigating the challenges in a changing school district and the invisible fences that keep neighbors separated. A while back, I was listening to this podcast called This American Life, and it was called The Problem We All Live With, the episode. And Anaya Jones is an investigative reporter that does a lot of work on segregation in modern day America. And she was sharing this story about this modern day integration story, basically, where this school district that was comprised almost entirely of Black and brown low income students had lost their accreditation. And it triggered this Missouri transfer law that essentially enabled these students who were locked into a failing school the opportunity to transfer to an accredited school. And they, the law stated that the failing district had to provide busing for these students. And so they decided to bus the students to a predominantly white, affluent district in a neighboring county. And the pushback, as told in the podcast, was shocking. I remember listening to these sound bites from this town meeting they had in the affluent district's high school gymnasium, and I could not get over the fact that it was from 2013. They interviewed in the podcast a mother and a daughter from the failing district, and the mother had been doing everything she could to get her daughter into a better school. And so when this transfer law was triggered, it was great news for them. And to hear her account of what it was like to stand in that gymnasium with her daughter and hear just how unwelcome they were was really heartbreaking. I'm an adoptive mother. My husband and I adopted a little girl she has some special needs, and we adopted her from a country in Africa. You know, when we decided to become a transracial family, we didn't know really what we were undertaking. I was the naive white woman, with envisioning Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. All the while I had no idea about his letter from a Birmingham jail. And not too long into our adoption process, Michael Brown was shot and killed in Ferguson. And these protests and riots started breaking out in St. Louis. And a string of people with the same color skin as my daughter were turning into hashtags on Twitter. And there was just this collective outcry from the Black community that I couldn't ignore. And it seemed like, a lot of people around me with the same color skin as me were ignoring it. That's kind of when I started to intentionally tune into and really seek out Black voices. I started following individuals on Twitter and, reading books and memoirs and articles and listening to podcasts and listening to sermons by Black pastors. And the more I listened, the more it just seemed like these invisible scales that I didn't even know were on my eyes started to fall. And I could really see this pervasive injustice all around. And when you see those things, seeing that injustice, I had this growing desire to do something. And I didn't know what I could do. But I did keep hearing from people in the Black community a common refrain, which was, if you want to do something to fight against racial injustice, talk to your people about racial injustice. And, my readers are my people. I love my readers. And I think that story is a really powerful medium. It speaks to hearts in ways that articles and facts often don't. I heard someone say once that it's like a training ground for empathy, and I love that because when you read a story, essentially what you're doing is you're walking that mile in someone else's shoes. In No One Ever Asked, the shoes you get to walk in belong to 3 women from very different walks of life. There is Camille Gray, who is the wife of a corporate exec. She's the mother of 3. She is she's a PTA chairwoman. Really, from the outside looking in, it really looks like she's got this picture perfect family. Jen Covington is new to town. She had a long, painful journey to motherhood that resulted in adoption, and it's turning out to be much more difficult than she ever imagined. And then Anaya Jones, who just graduated from college. She's the first female in her family with a college degree, and she's just gearing up to be a first-year, second-grade teacher, but there's no way for her to prepare for this powder-keg of a situation she's walking into. My hope for this book is that it would foster dialogue. I would love for it to start a conversation. I know that conversation in and of itself, just like empathy, isn't going to fix anything, but I think it's a really important place to start. And when readers put down the book and it goes back on a shelf and the plot and the characters inevitably fade, I hope that empathy remains and the conversation continues, and maybe it could be the beginning of a lot of individual journeys that together could make an impact.